Well, there has been a lot of noise this week thanks to Emma Grede. There's been some clips circulating because of her book launch and her podcast that's been very, very popular. And there are some strong reactions in both the comments and also in reaction videos. And to be honest, I have been mostly silent on this, kind of sitting with some of my own thoughts. And I'm ready to talk about it. Now, part of the reason is I have been in a love/not quite hate relationship with Emma since seeing her speak at the Goldman Sachs 10K SB Summit way back when I graduated as a part of the inaugural cohort of the 1 Million Black Women Black in Business program. I saw her. I did not know much about her when she was on that center stage, but I knew, number one, that for her to be there, she had to be a boss. But there was some things about some of the stuff that she said that was both appealing, but I wasn't quite sure. There's just something about it. And I have learned that in moments when you feel vexed or challenged or you're questioning things, those moments are actually moments for you to lean in and get curious, because there is healing and breakthrough and growth available to you if you'll be willing to sit with it. So I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with that, but I didn't have to because it wasn't a daily part of my life. But here recently, thanks to the book launch and the podcast and so forth, I'm seeing her all the time. And it's causing me to kind of sit with it and question some things. And so I want to talk not only about that, let you know a little bit about me, but also why I think this is maybe an important conversation for you as a private practice owner. Welcome back to Peace and Profit for Therapists. This is your host, Calvalyn Day. I am super excited about this conversation, and I think it's going to be maybe my best one yet. Okay, so here's the truth. I honestly was not going to listen to her book. I wasn't going to read it. I wasn't going to listen to it. I actually thought I don't need to be vexed during my reading time. But because of that curiosity that I mentioned, I really felt like it was important because I thought maybe there's something that I'm missing that is actually beneficial for me or for the audience. Emma Grede is genuinely a successful female founder, full stop. She is a woman of color, full stop. Those things, if you followed any part of her career, you know that she gets results. I think her net worth is somewhere around $400 million. But in terms of the companies that she has started and exited, we're talking billions of dollars of revenue. So for someone who essentially was a high school dropout who never finished college, she's the definition of self-made. That you cannot question. Those results are hers, right? Has she gotten boosted some points in her career? I don't know. But I know for sure where she started and how she's sitting pretty right now. So that is hers. She owns it. Where there's a little bit of confusion for me or a little bit of discord for me is around some of the clips and the quotes that have come out. And I think they are partially for clickbait, which is great marketing, but they're also partially taken slightly out of context. And in the context of her story, they really have a lot of value. But I'm listening to the book now. I went against my initial thought. I'm actually listening to the book and I like it. She's a great storyteller. Her voice is wonderful, obviously. And in hearing her story, the context makes it all make sense. So I want to kind of talk about what I think is happening, but more importantly, what you, the private practice owner, can take from this. So what I think is happening is Emma is describing one specific path to success. It's a real path. It's the one that worked for her. You've heard it probably many times before, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of version, right? That is not necessarily the wrong path. But I think in some of her conversations, she presents it as a singular path. And for you as a private practice owner, you probably are used to that. You've heard someone tell you you need to be doing private practice a certain way. You've got to be insurance-based. No, you've got to be cash pay. You've got to be independent. No, you've got to work with the platforms. You've probably heard somebody telling you what you to do. And as an opinionated person, I probably have given you some guidance and direction on that too. But I don't believe that there is only one path to success. I actually believe there's lots of paths. And there's a lot of pieces of the story that often happens when there's a history of trauma or neglect or, whatever that can show up in your life, and you turn that around and make it, like your own story. And you believe that that was necessary for your success. I think that's what I'm hearing in the parts of her that I don't really align with. The real question is there something for you to learn through this process? So one of the things that I really want you to take from this is kind of a renovation on my standard rule of thumb, which is I don't listen to people whose lives I don't want to emulate. Like, that's not something that I do. If you're going a place that I don't want to go, or you're going, like on a path that I don't want to be on, I don't need to take your advice. But I do think there's some value in what lessons can be gleaned, even if you don't love the path or the journey that someone's on, or you don't want the specific destination. I just think we need to take it with a grain of salt. Now, one of the classic kind of quotes that has been passed around is some of Emma's beliefs about the hustle and the grind and the hard work and the, working for low pay and just kind of showing up and being present. I think she said something like, working from home is career suicide and it doesn't allow you to show up. Well, for someone who never finished high school and literally had to boots on the ground their whole way through life and felt like their being present was something that was, helpful for them, I can understand why she takes that sort of approach. However, I know lots of people who show up every day, who do good work and still haven't been rewarded, or who've even been excluded from promotion. So I think that hustle grind culture is not something that I would ever want to promote. I can't tell you, however, that effort doesn't matter, or that consistency doesn't matter, or that showing up even when you don't feel like it doesn't matter. I actually think those are, in the right measure, actually keys to success. I talk about that with my clients. Maybe you're going to show up at 10% today instead of 100, but I still want you to be present for the things that you did. And part of that is you have to honor your commitment to yourself. I know a lot of people who have betrayed themselves by not showing up for their lives, who have been betrayed themselves by giving someone else, like she describes as like ownership over their success. You didn't trust yourself enough to say, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can have this. Yes, I will be successful. And because of that, you've actually betrayed yourself. And that's really the root cause of you not feeling confident. So I do think there's an air of honesty and truth in that piece of the puzzle. But the idea that the only route to success should be pain and sacrifice, that's where we don't agree. That kind of narrative, it really erases the stories of the people who did the work, who showed up, who had the credentials, who had the presence, who had the resumes, and didn't get what they deserved. And as a Black woman, that piece of the puzzle, particularly as we think about like corporate America or in traditional, like practice settings or hospital settings, I've watched thousands of Black women rise to leadership positions, having everything from the PhD to a resume that goes on for days, and then get summarily exiled from the economic system as the political winds kind of shift. So Emma, like a lot of people who made it to that, multi-million dollar lane, sometimes kind of gives that a brushstroke, like, yeah, that happened, but sort of thing. And that piece doesn't ever sit right with me, right? So for me, what that means is when I am coaching a therapist to create their lane, I'm creating with them a lane in which they don't have to sacrifice the things that matter. There may be a hard that we have to kind of address, but we're going to choose the hard that we can live with. We're going to choose the hard that is not going to cause us to doubt who we are or to not be in alignment with our values. Because in my belief, my spiritual belief and my personal belief is that you don't have to sacrifice your values in order to win. And I don't think that she ever did that. Like, I haven't gotten to anything in the book that kind of says that she did that. But I think that's the slippery slope when you kind of present the hustle and grind culture without the little asterisk beside it. Another one of her quotes that made me roll my eyes is her conversation about the people who get to have extraordinary lives are the people who are putting in extraordinary effort. And it really is a similar, kind of motif to who gets to have the best sort of life. And she specifically describes that you shouldn't be expecting a raise if you're only working 3 days a week, or you shouldn't be expecting financial abundance if you're only working 3 days a week. And I just vehemently disagree with that. The piece of the puzzle that I don't think she adequately describes or discusses, even in the things that I've seen so far, is who gets to decide where the finish line is? Who gets to decide what extraordinary is? And I mean that on both sides. What describes or defines extraordinary effort, and what describes or defines an extraordinary life? And maybe my extraordinary life is working 3 days a week and being able to be a parent. Maybe my extraordinary life is being able to be present with clients sometimes, but then also being able to do other things like speaking or teaching or recording a podcast. Who gets to make that definition? Now, I think her root value is that you get to make that definition, but it just kind of pales like when you put that in comparison to the traditional corporate world, that doesn't always get met, with the best response. So for you, private practice owner, I'm going to ask you that question. How would you define an extraordinary life? And what does that look like for you? What does that feel like for you? What would extraordinary outcomes mean for the clients that you serve? What would extraordinary success mean for the business that you're building? Like, you really should be defining that. Even if the powers that be don't have the same definition, as an individual, you get to decide that. And I think that piece of the puzzle, she sort of gets right. But I'm just going to say, I want you to decide. I want you to decide what that looks like. The standards for so much of what we do in the mental health world really are oftentimes in someone else's hands. It's a kind of a grade book or a checklist that we don't control, that wasn't necessarily created with us in mind, that has, pros and cons, perks and serious drawbacks. And so the key here is you have to make sure that you're never disappointing you. That's really the bottom line. So when it comes to how you design and define your success as a practice owner, I just want you to make sure that you're really, really clear that you get to define that. Now, as a soccer mom, here's what I will say. She was very clear that she did not want to spend all weekend on the soccer field. As somebody who has been rain, sleet, snow, and shine on the soccer field with one of the 4 kids at any given time, I completely understand not wanting to give more than 3 hours of intentional time to such an endeavor on a weekend. She said it very clearly. I don't always do school drop off, and that's my choice. And here's the piece that I think, the part that I really rumbled with a little bit, right? Because as a mom who does pick up and drop off, I do think that has value. And I actually think it adds to my success and, as a business owner and as a professional, because I am very strategic about how I use my time because of the way that I need to use my time. But she's adamant, and she has a point, that we would never ask a man why he's not at drop off or pickup. We would never ask a man why he's not doing these things, just outwardly ask them. Now, we might ask our spouse, we might say, hey, I need you to, work with me on this. We might ask you a co-parent. But the way that we approach professional women and question them about everything that they do with regards to their family, that is something that, in my opinion, needs to stop. And the way we do that to practice owners who we expect to drop everything and squeeze in a session with the client at a moment's notice, while simultaneously making it to drop off and pick up time on time, and not forgetting to pick up the favorite applesauce pouches or whatever. Like those expectations from a societal standpoint, those only get directed at women. And it's part of the reason why so often, what I see in terms of private practice owners, that conflicted, like I want more success, I want more money, I want more freedom, I want more autonomy. But at the end of the day, when I have to make a decision between showing up on the soccer field with the perfectly bagged up snacks or taking 10 minutes to record some videos to promote my practice, one of those is going to get the choice. And I wonder how often the fear of being judged or the fear of our child being disappointed in us or our spouse not being proud of us, how often that actually undermines your role as a CEO. What is frustrating about sometimes this conversation is there room for me to say I shouldn't have to, but I choose to? Right? And this is really part of why I'm so pro independent private practices, right? I think that you shouldn't have to, that you should have the choices, but that if you make this choice, it shouldn't inherently mean you can't earn the money you want to make, right? It shouldn't inherently mean that you aren't seen as leadership potential. And for most people, that's the case. So if you want that, private practice ownership is the only way that you really can create it. But one of the things that I really rumbled with as I thought about this episode is, am I really the person who's in the position to question this? Emma has a net worth of something like $400 million. Let's just say at the time of the recording, my manifested net worth is not in that same vicinity. So here I am from my position of a work in progress with a bank account that is a work in progress, right? Passing judgment maybe or giving opinion on someone who is by many metrics more successful than I. That puts me in like a position of like, ooh, should I even be saying this? But I am. And I'm standing 10 toes down on it, really, because my entire brand is being built around the idea that peace and profit are not in conflict, that they can exist in the same space, that you do not have to sacrifice the things that you actually value in order to have survival or even better than survival. I believe that to my core. And that is something that I honestly think that if she's being super duper honest, because so far I've heard a little bit of confliction in the book, and I'll see how it finishes out. I think if she's really honest, she'll say the same thing, right? What the part of her backstory that comes out in the book that I was not aware of prior to this is that she was the oldest of four. She spent a lot of time nurturing her family. Her mom was a hard worker who provided but was not super nurturing, so she was the nurturer. And so she spent a lot of her childhood and young adult life nurturing other people's children. And so I think her level of desire for nurturing at this point relatively low. And she always had this quest for success. And like she wasn't willing to sacrifice the success for being at drop off. So I wonder if she really wanted it, if she would have figured it out. If that's kind of what makes that's kind of the point that I'm going for, is like, I don't think she actually wanted both. I think she really is perfectly content with the level that she has. And therefore she's made this determination that they're not, they can't really happen together. You've got to be extraordinary. You've got to show up. You've got to do things. But I wonder if she really wanted it, if she could have figured it out. And I really honestly believe she probably could. Based upon what I am learning about her, she could. Because what she is very clear about is that she is going to ask for what she wants. She is going to expect the results and reward commensurate with her level of effort, right? And she's not going to tolerate no for an answer. She's going to ask questions. She's going to get curious, and she's going to put herself out there. And those are all things that I think you as a private practice owner can absolutely apply to your work every day. Which brings me to, here's what I really want to leave you with in this episode. I am going to finish her book. I think it is a really great write and a great read/listen. It is 100% worth my time and attention, and I'm going to give it that. I have another slew of notes that will probably, like I said, come up in a part 2 episode to this. because I want to be really clear that when a $400 million net worth person gives you suggestions, there's a good chance there's something in there that you can apply to your life. Even if you are not interested in going her specific path, I think there's some nuggets that you can pick up along the way. So my words to you on this. Number one, not all successful advice is advice that you should take personally or literally. There's almost always a story behind it. There's always some history behind it, some lessons behind it, some things that worked for them that won't work for you, or things that they were more than willing to do for various reasons that just don't align with what you're interested in doing. The question you should ask yourself is, did this work for someone who is trying to build what I'm trying to build? Like, are they, have they done what I actually want to do? And are they doing that in a life that looks the way that I want mine to actually look? If the answer is no, right, then that means something that you're going to definitely have to take with a grain of salt when you listen to it. And in some instances, you might just decide it's not worth the listen. You can learn from them without following them if you choose, or you can eliminate what they say from your mind altogether. And this isn't just for $400 million net worth people either. This is for the private practice mentor that you thought was going to be the person that gave you everything that you needed, or the online business guru who swore that they could help you sell 1 million courses, right? The models that you've sometimes been handed are not necessarily the models that are going to get you over the finish line, right? Maybe once you got licensed, you thought community mental health was going to be the thing for you, and then you realized that is not where you want to be. Maybe you thought the hospital was a great place to work and maybe even retire from, and now you realize that's not what's going to work. Maybe you decided private practice is absolutely what you want to do, but you started off thinking insurance was it, and now you're thinking you want to go cash pay. Nothing is forever. You are allowed to change, and asking the questions about what you want to remain and what you want to stay the same and what you definitely want to change. Those are some great places to start. We just talked about this recently in the Own Your Practice Challenge. So you've got to be clear about that. Trying to dress up someone else's version of success and put it in your life will not work. It just never will. It's cost many a therapist before. I think it's honestly even cost the profession. And everything from burnout to, financial depletion to talented clinicians leaving completely the industry. I just want you to know that there are options. There have always been options. And part of what I do is help you figure those out. Now, 3 questions that I've gotten so far from Emma's book that I think will help you as a private practice owner to do some reflection today about the direction that you want your business to go in, what you want to produce, and what you want it to look like. Question number 1, what do you actually want? I mean, like, seriously, not what are you supposed to want, not what looks good on the outside, not what you think you're allowed to have. What do you actually want your life to look like? Question number 2, do you genuinely believe that you can have it? Or are you performing as if you don't actually think you will get there? For me, there was a time when I really thought, like, can I, as a busy mama of 4, actually have a business that pays me hundreds or thousands of dollars an hour? Like, I know it's possible, but like, possible for me, I had to get to the place where I honestly believed that. And it did do some work. I was talking to a client this week and she said, like, I thought I had already done all this money work. And sometimes you have done it at one level, but there's layers to this. And you might be at the next layer and need to do some more. And then this last question. This is the one that's going to get you. I want you to really sit with this one. Pour yourself some chai tea and have at it. What habits or boundaries have you not put in place that you know actually will get you where you want to go? And why aren't you doing it? Is there something that you specifically know would benefit you? Is there a boundary that you need to set with yourself or for someone else? Why are you hesitating to do the thing that you actually really believe is necessary? So, that's what I want you to rumble with. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Peace and Profit for Therapists. I hope that this has been beneficial for you. I would love for you to do a couple of things. First of all, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you're subscribed. It tells the podcast gods that they should share our podcast with other people. Drop a comment and let me know what part of today's episode actually stood out for you. If there was something that you think I got wrong, you didn't agree with it, I want to hear about it. Tell me about it in the comments, okay? If you think this episode is phenomenal and that somebody else needs to listen to it, pass it along. That is another great way to share and care, and it helps things moving in the right direction. And if you have listened to this today and you said, I have outsourced some of my opportunity. I have outsourced some of the control in my business, and I want to get more of that back, but I don't feel confident. I don't feel sure. I don't know what the next step is, and I need somebody to kind of rumble through this with me. Call your girl. I would absolutely love to have the conversation. The Practice Revenue Diagnostic is a great place to start. And it's wonderful for you, whether you've got an established practice that you really need me to get into the deep dive with to kind of come up with the financial piece of it, or if the business model and the structure is the part that we really need to get in there and diagnose and treat. Either way, I'll make sure that the link to that is around this episode. Because if you're in a place where you know what you want, it's getting clearer to you, but you're not really sure how to get there, that is not something that you should wait on, because you are absolutely entitled to have everything that you want. And at the very least, I want it to be something that you are working towards sooner rather than later. Because here in my world matters because you're here. Peace and profit are not in competition. You get to have them both.